Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar. I'm glad to see everybody here today, and I hope that you find this webinar insightful, and hopefully I can come up with some information that you can use that'll help better provide cybersecurity for you and your company. My name is Mark Green. I'm co-owner of Stryker Networks. Stryker Networks is an IT company that provides IT services for small to mid-sized businesses. We specialize in cybersecurity and in compliancy. We also specialize in the arena of healthcare and financial services. Just a little bit about me. I'm a former police officer, 15-year veteran. My main focus as a police officer was crime scene investigation. So I performed crime scene investigation. I also performed IT forensics or computer forensics as well. I'm certified as a computer forensics examiner and expert witness. And also, I've spent over 10 years in focusing on and learning about and teaching about cyber crime as it relates to businesses primarily. So all that to be said, let's begin, and we'll talk a little bit about what is cyber safety or cybersecurity. So the most common term used for cybersecurity is, it describes a set of practices or measures or actions that you can take to protect personal information. And I mean, the goal here today is to find ways that we can use or methods that we can use to be able to protect people's information. I mean, right now that's a real hot thing, especially what's going on with the COVID-19. It's reverted a little bit back to what's called the Wild Wild West when it comes to cybersecurity. And what I mean by that is that before, everybody was inside corporate networks, all the security was put in place, policies, procedures, all of that, everything was being monitored all the time, tested, and so forth. But what's happened now is because everybody's working from home, a lot of people are using their home computers. There's no security on the home computers. But yet they're connecting to the corporate networks, which is not a good thing. And so all that security measures, all that the systems that were put in place to help protect all of that now has kind of gone away. And so because of that, cybercrime has gone up exponentially. And I can't even tell you the calls that we're getting, the things that we're doing when it comes to cybercrime. It's happening on a daily basis. And so you need to really be aware and really understand what we're going through right now. And we're hoping that we can put some practices in place and put some policies in place and put some security in place to help prevent all of that. And so I want to talk a little bit about what the cyber threats are that are around there. So there's viruses which infect computers, right? And then there's hackers that come in and try to trespass and grab the information that's inside the computers. And once they're inside the computer system, they're going to grab identity, whatever that might be. It could be PHI, and it could be, which is, for lack of a better word, personal health information, and PI, which is personal information, and they're going to take that and try to monetize it in some way. And then after, once they're already in, they're going to leave something behind most of the time, which is some spyware or adware, so they can continue to spy or gather information from your computer as you're typing it in, and then adware, those little ads that kind of pop up and say, hey, you know, I see that you went to this website and you might be interested in buying this and that. And so those are some of the things that that we see today. And we've seen this for a really long time, but we're seeing a huge increase in what that is right now. So we need to be aware of that. We're going to talk a little bit today about how we can identify it, what we can do to help mitigate it, and then what you as an end user can help do to prevent it. There's a video that's put out. It's on Amazon Prime. So if you're a Prime member, it's free. And it's called Cybercrime. And it's done very, very well. And I would really suggest that you go to Amazon Prime and look at it under the videos there, and look at and watch that film, because it talks a little bit about, you know, what's going on in the world, which is scary enough as it is, but then also the depth of what happens and the mindset of the cyber criminal, and as they go through and grab information, what they're trying to do and how they can monetize it. So I'm going to play a little clip from that. So just sit back and watch it and enjoy it.
We've all been there, right? Checking your email, all is good. Then, bam. In comes a message from a name you don't recognize. Or better yet, it's from someone or a company you do recognize, but something just doesn't feel right about it.
Act now, or your account will be deactivated.
Hey, check out my pictures. I'm writing this email with tears in my eyes.
You owe the IRS $5,000 in taxes.
You get the picture. But over time, the people behind these, as well as other cyber scams, have gotten so much better and more skilled that it's getting hard to tell what's real and what's not. Why do these scams come so often and frequent? And who is behind them? What do they want? Why are they targeting you? And most important of all, is there anything you can do to prevent from becoming a victim?
Cybercrime is the mode of creating some kind of technical harm or taking some kind of data from a technical purpose.
The stealing of and or rendering useless digital currency and monetizing it in some way, shape, or form.
Cybercrime today is going to take advantage of every weakness it can find. People can sit behind a computer and they can just scour the internet looking for a place to get in.
Hackers can be anyone. They can be your next door neighbor. They're anybody.
And their goal is to make a functioning business out of being a cyber criminal.
Any type of crime that you can do in the real world, you can pretty much do in the cyber world. Ransom, bribery can be digitalized, can be systematized.
It's receiving an email that's phishing for information, or an SMS text message that's trying to get you to click on a link, and or even somebody compromising your network or your computer.
Maybe something more complex, people hacking into the Targets of the world and stealing credit card information.
Attackers are after anything that they can either hold for ransom or that they can pilfer and sell.
It can happen to anybody. It can happen to my mother. It can happen to a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Cybercrime does not discriminate.
It's a huge threat that can bring down individuals, and it can cripple and destroy businesses.
Not only does it affect large businesses, the small businesses, it affects every individual.
What happens when you get hacked? What happens when you have thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are just siphoned out of your bank accounts? Where do you go from there?
And unfortunately, you don't really realize the impact that it has on your business until it's too late.
Okay, so as you can see, cyber crime and cyber criminals are very sophisticated, and the amount of constant attack is unbelievable. And so you need to understand that. If you don't recognize that first, if you don't understand that first, you're never going to want to do something to protect it. It's like crime in your neighborhood. If you don't see any crime and everything is good, you're not worried. You'll leave your door unlocked maybe, or your car unlocked. But all of a sudden, if somebody, somebody's house gets burglarized, all of a sudden you're locking and bolting the doors, checking the windows, you're checking everything. So it's all about being aware of what's going on around you. And it's really, really important to understand that this is going around you all the time. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you seriously what is happening and just the real truth, what reality is out there right now. So it's interesting. The FBI back in 2017 came out with a statement that says about 63% of all businesses will suffer some type of breach or attack. In 2018, they came out with about 87% of companies, small, mid-sized companies, will experience some sort of a breach or attack. In 2019, they stopped all that and they said, it says if, it's not if, it's when. So it's not if it's going to happen to you, it's when it's going to happen to you. The issue is that what are you going to do about it? How are you going to prevent it the best that you can? You can't prevent all of it. I can tell you that right now. There's no magic silver bullet that's going to take care of all this protection. There's multiple levels and layers of protection that you need to put in place, but it's not 100%. And so it's getting harder and harder and harder to prevent cyber attacks because this is a very large industry, meaning that the cyber criminals is a very large industry, very lucrative for them. And what happens is that they're constantly inventing and morphing and changing the way that they attack. They use, social engineering. They use technology. They use all type of stuff. So what's happening is that we're always about a step or two behind them as an IT company trying to prevent this. But we find out that through education and through awareness, as well as implementing the technology that's out there, it's the only chance that we have to help prevent some of that. It says here that 97% of all businesses have been compromised, like the big ones like Target, Home Depot, LinkedIn. I'm sure you've all heard about that. So let me tell you a little story about the Target breach and kind of walk you through what that looks like. So as you know, Target was breached. All type of credit card information, personal information was gathered or attacked. And I don't know about you, but my wife got a letter in the mail saying, hey, your Target card was possibly been breached and that you need to get a new Target card and so forth, and be aware of that and all the other stuff. But what happened is that the hackers found a way into their HVAC or heating and air conditioning software, the software that runs the heating and air conditioning for the stores and for the corporate headquarters. And what happens is the engineers can then go through their cell phone or go through a computer and change temperature and try to keep everything balanced as best as possible within the system, which is also connected to the network. And pretty much today, in today's day and age, almost every device is connected into the network. Camera systems, access control, just to name a few. And so because they're all connected to the network, if they're not firewalled somewhere and they're directly connected, that's another spot to come in. So the hackers found a weakness in the software, the HVAC system, and got into that computer, which is, again, connected to the network. So then they rode from that computer to the network, from the network into the point of sale system, from the point of sale system into their credit card system, and then there was the gold mine of all the information. So they gathered and grabbed all that information to be sold later on the dark web. And we're going to talk a little bit about the dark web and help you understand why it's such a lucrative business for them and why they're out there trying to do, numerous different ways of gathering data and information, because data is king. Data is more valuable than money is. And so about 97% of all businesses have been compromised, right? And usually just by a simple spyware software or a open port or a weak computer somewhere on the network that does that. And that includes home computers. And now today, there's a lot of people working from home. They're using their home computers. Home computers don't have the right antivirus on. If it does, it's probably not updated. They don't have the proper Windows patches. They don't have a proper firewall sitting there, but yet you're allowing them to connect to the company network in some way, shape, or form, some better than others. And once they're connected, they can transmit whatever's on the home computer over onto the network computer. So that's a big problem right now. Something that we didn't see happening. We didn't see the coronavirus coming out. We didn't see everybody, sheltering at home. We didn't see any of this stuff happening. All of a sudden, we had to switch on a dime and get everybody off the company networks and somehow work remotely. And that was a challenge in itself. But because of all that, that allows a lot more opportunities for the cyber criminals. So how does it happen? Again, I was just saying it travels from one infected computer to another. People get tricked into giving their personal information. How many people have gotten either an email that says, this is from UPS and we couldn't deliver your package. Click here to find out where your package is at. And then they click there and it says, type in some information. You type it in. And next thing you know, it says, in order to see it, you need to click here to allow an installation of a little program. And people are like, okay, I'm going to click there. It's UPS. I want to see where my package is at. Next thing you know, the computer gets infected. And that infection travels to the other computer, another computer back to the company network. So people get tricked in that way, as happens all the time. They get phone calls. I got a phone call the other day that was from Microsoft, and Microsoft says your computer's been compromised. It popped up on our network. You're providing bad information to our Microsoft network, so we need to remote into your computer right away, and we need to go and scan it and clean it up for you. We'll do that for free. And then they come in and they scan it, and they find all kind of stuff, and they say, oh, you need to have some protection for $49.95, $69.95, whatever it is. You need to put some protection on there. So, you know, let's go ahead and do that. What's your credit card number? What's your, you know, your expiration of your credit card? So they have all your credit card information now. There was never anything wrong with your computer. This Microsoft will never, ever, ever call you. IRS won't call you. U.S. Postal Service, they won't call you. And most likely they won't send you an email. They'll send you an actual physical letter in the mail. And so by that happening, they have your credit card information, they have access to your computer, they've installed some software on your computer because you allow them to, and now it's gathering all your information. So from that, they can extrapolate possible, you know, banking information, credit card information, and so forth. So, you know, that you need to be aware of. And then the other part is our website. You go to websites, oh, you want to see this, you want to download that, click here. Oh, in order to see this video, you need to click here to download the video software, which is really nothing more than malicious software that's going to come in and do some damage to your computer. People fall for that all the time. And so you want to make sure you never, ever, ever download anything from the internet or from an email unless you're 1,000% sure what it is. If there's any doubt, please don't do this. And I want you to listen to this. The biggest way that the cyber criminals can gather your information, get your information, hold you ransom by encrypting all your computer software and files is through phishing. And I'm not talking about phishing for bass. I'm talking about email phishing. Socially engineered emails that make you react and think that it's something other than what it is. And through those emails, they tend to gather a lot of your information, or they install something on your computer that can go through and encrypt all your files. You get a little window that pops up and it says, oh, all your files have been encrypted. You no longer have access to them. You need to pay us $6,000 in Bitcoins in order to be able to get the information back. And then people are all panicked and all that. And then they usually pay the ransom. Sometimes they get the decryption key where the files come back. Sometimes they don't. But in any case, if that were to happen and you paid and you decrypted your files, you got everything back, there's still resident software sitting on your computer or on the network somewhere. So everything has to be scrubbed, everything has to be reinstalled, everything has to be fixed. It's a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort for something that could have been prevented because somebody clicked on an email and clicked to allow the installation of a program. So I want to play a little video that talks and helps you understand what that email phishing is all about. So enjoy the film.
What is phishing? Phishing is a scam where emails are sent to fool people into revealing private information that can be used for identity theft. According to cybersecurity experts, phishing is an epidemic with a number of attacks soaring every year. A typical phishing scam involves an official-looking email that appears to be sent by a legitimate organization, such as a bank, credit card company, online payment service, or an online store. The email often claims that your account is in jeopardy and needs prompt attention, saying bank or credit card information is needed to correct the issue. It then asks you to log into a legitimate-looking but fake website set up to capture your account information. The bank or credit card information you provide is then used for identity theft. If you get an email asking to click a link to verify your account information, don't. Banks and credit card companies never ask you for personal data by email, neither does the IRS. If there's a problem with a bank or credit card account, they'll call you. If the tax authorities want to contact you, they'll do it by U.S. mail. Hover over the link in the email and you can see where it came from, but don't click it. Does it look like the banking site you use, or does it have a lot of extra characters in the URL? If it does, don't click it. It's a scam. Are there any words misspelled, or grammar or punctuation errors? That is an easy way to identify a phishing scam. Look at the email address that it came from. Is it directly from the place it says it is from? If not, it is a scam. If you get an email like that, go directly to the company website by typing in the URL and log in. If you sign on without any trouble and there's no other message from your bank saying that your account is compromised, you know that it's not. Contests are also used for phishing scams. Win a free $500 gift card. Just click the link to collect some awesome rewards and you could be embedding a virus into your computer that captures your every keystroke, passwords, usernames, and account numbers. When you see free, think danger. You're not going to get something for nothing. Take that extra time to verify the information you see, and if you cannot verify it from a source you can identify, don't click on it.
So I hope you guys understood what they were talking about in that video. And I can tell you, phishing is the #1 way for the cyber criminals to get into your system, to install something on your system. That's the biggest cause of ransomware. Ransomware, you know, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it was, you know, millions and millions and millions, or maybe even billions of dollars last year that were paid to the cyber criminals. And in a slide that's coming up, it's going to have some more specifics on the amount of money that's involved when it comes to this. So again, the consequences of a bad phishing email, something that you clicked on, is you know, loss of access to your computer network, because it can potentially encrypt all the files and all the information on your network. Loss of confidentiality when it comes to regulated industries that are required for PCI, which is credit card information, or HIPAA, which is obviously healthcare information, and other information that's out there. It's the loss of all of that. So it's not only that they're taking it from you, those are your clients' information, and those are your patients' information, and you have to react to that. And by law, and under certain penalties, you have to let them know what has happened. And that doesn't fare very well for your reputation. And then, of course, what happens, right? There's lawsuits that happen, and then loss of public trust. You know, people look at it and say, you know, I don't know if I trust you to hold my data. It was already breached once. You need to prove to me and help me understand why I can trust you again to give you that information, or allow you to continue to work with you with that information. That's how important all this is. And also, the last but not least, it's really expensive to recover from all of this. Again, you know, we have many instances where we've been brought into clients after an attack. And we work with either security companies, insurance companies primarily, where we come in and they say, hey, we have a client that's been breached, all their files are encrypted, we need to go in, you need you to go in there and to remediate and eradicate everything. So what we have to do is, first of all, check to see if you have backups, and we're going to talk about that. The second thing is that we're going to have to replace all the hard drives in all the computers, including the servers, reload all the information, the operating system, all the data, their applications, everything that they have. Hopefully they have a backup so it can restore their main database of applications and all that. And so it's costly in two ways. One, the amount of money that you're going to pay us to come in and remediate it, and two, the amount of downtime that you have, and it could take a week or more to recover everything, and meanwhile your business is put on hold or on pause because of that. And so it just kind of keeps going on and on and on until some point where you realize the costs are staggering, and you know, it's a real thing that's out there. So I'm going to share with you a few statistics that are out there mainly from the FBI. It says cybercrime is going to cost up to about $6 trillion annually by 2021. $6 trillion annually. Now, that's not just the money that the cyber criminals get, that's the money that cybercrime costs in general. So it's the money you're going to pay to the criminals, it's the money you're going to pay to companies like us to come and remediate everything. And so it's huge. It gives you an idea of the overall size and volume of what cybercrime does today. And I got to tell you, you know, we're doing everything that we can from an IT standpoint, not just cyber, not just Stryker Networks, but other IT companies. We're doing everything we can with all the technologies that's out there, right? And if your current IT provider is not providing that information to you, not testing, not adding some additional levels of protection, looking at business continuity and your backups and all, if they're not doing that for you, you need to make sure that they are, because that's the only way that you're going to recover from something like this. Because this is going to put a lot of people out of business, and has for sure in the past. So it's a very real thing. It's something that you need to be serious about. And I know you don't want to go out and spend money as a company, but if you don't spend it on the front end, it's like insurance, you're going to get hammered on the back end. And if that's the case, you're going to wish that you did something about it. So being more proactive with it is really important. And again, if you have any issues or questions on that, feel free to give me a call on that. The average cost of a data breach is about $3.92 million as of 2019. These are federal statistics. And about 73% of the U.S. population has been compromised, and their information is on the dark web. And again, we're going to talk about the dark web in a few more slides here. It's a really interesting place, but it's a marketplace where all your data goes to be sold, which is very interesting. So the point of this slide right here is to help you understand the size and the reach of what this is, okay? The only way that we're ever going to 100% eradicate this is through AI or artificial intelligence. It's starting to come around a little bit, but it's not there yet. Artificial intelligence will change the way that we look at protecting our data. Again, data is king. Data is going to be way, way more valuable than money. You have data, then you have the keys to the kingdom. And you can do that, you can market it, you can sell it, you can prevent people from doing things because of a certain rating on their data. It's all kinds of things that are going to happen that are already starting to happen, that's going to continue to happen. So that data becomes more valuable and valuable every single day. And we have to figure out a way as an IT professional to prevent that. Again, you have a multi-layer system to be able to prevent it now, but our software right now is at it's called a if this, then that. And what I mean by that is it looks at if this happens, if these things happen, then do this. And the problem is that if we don't have, these things happen, if those things change or morph, then it flies under that radar because it doesn't get picked up by if this, then that, if you follow what I'm saying. Artificial intelligence will be able to look at, like you and I, and see patterns and see what's happening, what's going on, and be able to jump in and make choices and changes and blocks and stops. And we'll take this data, this program, we'll put it off to the side and we'll evaluate it, not let it infect anything that's going on. And so we're inching towards that. We're just not there yet. So we can only prevent through being proactively putting systems in place, but it's the end user that's our biggest problem. And if we can't educate the end user, we're never going to make it past this. So, this is kind of fitting. This is like a virus, which is what computer viruses are. It's just like the coronavirus, COVID-19, right? And so you have to make sure that you have backups online and offline and keep your files secure. You have to strengthen your home network for sure, because right now that's the biggest vulnerability. You have to use strong passwords. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You have to keep your software updated. Again, we're going to talk about that as well. You need to manage your social media profiles and what's out there, because they can be hacked as well. They can ruin the reputations of a lot of companies because of that. So you got to manage it, monitor it, and be careful what you're doing with that. You always have to have policies and procedures for security to be able to maintain a higher level of security for all your clients' data and your company's data, right? And then you just have to be, aware of not opening up suspicious things and being just overly cautious for that. And there's ways that we can help you do that, ways that we can do testing, ways that we can do phishing testing and things like that as well that help our clients out, because that's been the biggest success. Us going out and training them, us going out and making them aware of what's out there and what's going on. Those are the two biggest things that we find that's most successful. So again, you have to make sure that your operating system softwares are up to date and patched. You have to make sure that you have antivirus software is up to date and it's being updated on a regular basis all the time. I'm talking multiple times a day. You have to put some other safeguards or other software that's in there, that's available out there, I should say, to help mitigate the ransomware, some of the files being encrypted. There's software out there that can see that pattern, stop it, and reverse it because it was running before it happened. You need to make sure that you use firewalls, enterprise level firewalls, to make sure that you're protected coming into your network. If we can filter out and protect stuff before it hits your network, before you have the access to see it, before the phishing emails come through, if we have ways that we can filter a lot of that out, not 100%. We're never going to be 100% at this point, but we're going to, again, multiple layers of safety and protection in there, and firewall is one of them. We also want to make sure that we avoid any spyware, adware, and malware. Those are the programs that get installed on your computer. A lot has to do with the end user. There's some things that we can do from a security standpoint on not giving local access to your local computer to allow that to be installed. There's other things that we can do with that. And then we have to make sure that we protect our passwords. And we're going to talk about that. And it's real important that you back up your files. You know, in our clients, or for our clients, we have a 3-tiered system for backup, and we call it business continuity. So it's not really backup. It's not really backup and disaster recovery. It's continuity, meaning how quickly, what can we do to get them up and running and continue to run when there is a problem? And so business continuity takes it to a much higher level. And so we have a 3-tiered process of being able to do that for our clients. And then physical security is also important. Laptops, you know, all laptops, especially if it has important data information on it or email information, right? They should be encrypted. The hard drive should be encrypted. And what happens when it's encrypted is that if you were to lose that laptop, or it was going to be stolen or something like that, the data on the hard drive is encrypted. Even if you pull the hard drive off and plug it into something else, you can't make heads nor tails of that data. It looks like just a bunch of characters and information that's not usable. So that information is safe from being hacked. We also recommend that on the company networks as well, either through the server being completely encrypted with software that prevents outside people from coming in and grabbing. If they do grab it, again, it's useless to them because it's sitting at rest encrypted. We also try to encrypt the transmission of the information. So if it's going from one computer through the network to the server, you want that transmission to be encrypted, especially for remote users remoting into a company's network. You always want to have that VPN, virtual private network, making sure that that data is encrypted as it's being in transit. And physical security is also making sure the server room or other high value rooms that house data are secure, that you regulate who has keys to it, who has access to it on a regular basis. That should be a policy in place to be able to do that. Should be a policy for backups and the continuity recovery, policy for passwords. I mean, all of these should have policies around them so that they stay in effect. Everybody understands. We always refer back to the policy. Let's talk a little bit about the antivirus. You want to make sure that you don't use a computer that doesn't have antivirus. Big problem we're having with the home computers, we're not sure if they have antivirus on them because we're not monitoring, we're not checking them, they don't have the corporate antivirus on it. And so if you know your computer doesn't have it, you need to walk away and say, I need to get this protected first before I connect to the company network. You need to make sure that you have an enterprise class antivirus protection, not the free stuff that's out there, not the homegrown stuff. You want something that's at enterprise level because remember, you need to protect the home computers because they're attaching to the company networks, right? You also need to make sure that you have an enterprise class of antivirus, anti-malware, and anti-spyware, both at work and at home. It's very, very important to do that. Some of the other safeguards is you have to make sure that you don't give out any of your financial information to anybody. You don't do it in an email that's not encrypted. You don't do it in with a website where you're going to the website and filling out forms and all that. You want to keep your financial account information, your social security, your driver's license information, and all the other important personal information protected to you. You don't want it going out there at all. And you need to protect other people's information. If you're in a position where you have other people's information, social security, HR, the payroll, that kind of stuff, you need to make sure that you protect it just as if it was your own information. Just like you wouldn't want your information to go out there, you certainly don't want to make sure that I don't want you to send my information out there as well. Second thing is that you never send confidential or PHI information. PHI stands for Protected Health Information, which is under the HIPAA. You want to make sure that you don't email the patient their information that's not secure. That email needs to be encrypted. Better yet, you should put it on a portal site from a patient site or from an end user site, which is encrypted as it sits there. Allow them to access it in an encrypted manner. They can view it in an encrypted manner and then be able to do what they need to do with it. That covers all the bases so that that information isn't floating out into the cloud, into the internet, being intercepted by nefarious users. You also need to make sure that you keep a constant understanding of what's called BYOD, or bring your own device. A lot of companies allow their people to bring their own devices, cell phones, tablets, things like that. They connect to the wireless system in general. So now their information is connected to your network potentially. And so if that's not encrypted, or if that's a point of vulnerability where somebody can access it, hack into it, and jump into your network, that's a bad thing. So make sure that they always have a password protection on it. Usually it's under a policy. A lot of clients of ours have, we monitor all the personal devices through a system that we don't monitor the emails and monitor the text, and not that kind of monitor. We're talking about making sure it's protected, making sure there's a password on it. If it gets lost, we can wipe it, we can change the password, we can do all that kind of stuff. Because remember, those cell phones normally have the company email information on it, and probably a lot of chat information and all that. And so as a company, if you choose to allow them to bring their own device, you have to have strict policies on if they're going to access or put email on their cell phones, that they have to follow these certain guidelines, or they have to be part of a managed service to be able to manage that cell phone or tablet, and that they're aware that it's being managed. And so that's really important, because that's another way of them getting in and getting information. And you also have to be able to be aware of the phishing scams like we talked about. I mean, that's super important, because that is for sure one of the number one ways that people are being hacked, or that data is being compromised, or data is being ransomed, for sure, no doubt about it. Again, we talked about the firewalls. You need to make sure that you have enterprise class firewall. You want to make sure that it has antivirus, malware, and spyware, anti-spam. Spam is, spam email. We all know what that is. We get spam email all the time, but you want to have some filters to be able to prevent that, because inside that spam email are phishing attempts that have malicious software in it and all that. So we can eliminate the volume that comes in, eliminate the spam or the junk that comes in to your email, then we have a less chance of being compromised, and we want to make sure that we do that. We also make sure that your firewall has good intrusion protection. It's interesting, if you ever saw a firewall and looked at the logs of a firewall, which I'm sure none of you do, but if some of you do, you look at it, you see that it's being constantly pinged or hit. It means somebody's trying to penetrate that firewall all the time. It's all automatic. It's a bunch of systems that are out there just trying to hit it for all different ports, constantly, nonstop, all day long, 24/7, until it finds a vulnerability, then it worms its way in. Then it finds another vulnerability. Now it's inside your network. Then it finds another vulnerability. Now it's inside of a computer, and then it puts a little something in the computer that goes out through the whole network. And so you need to stop and protect that from the very beginning. So you need to have intrusion prevention. You need to make sure that all your antivirus and your firewalls are being monitored and updated about every 15 minutes. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, and I know it's hard in enterprise to be able to do that. But if you have the capability of doing that, if it's not on the firewall side, it should be on the antivirus side for sure. And a lot of the antivirus is being pushed out and managed, or the endpoints are being managed by the firewalls. Some of them are independent by remote systems and things like that. But you want to try to kind of keep down that path to keep constantly being updated. And you want to make sure that it has your firewall has some sort of sandstorm protection or sandbox protection. So what I mean by that is that it's detecting some software coming in. Let me give you an example here. Usually when you get ransomware, it's through a phishing email. You click on it, it gets installed on that person's computer. You don't even know it, it's installed there. And it sits there and it looks for two things: low internet and network volume use, and usually looks at a time period of where there's almost nobody available, very low usage. And what it does is then it phones home. That little software goes out to a website somewhere, usually in a Middle Eastern country somewhere. And it goes and then it sucks down what's called the payload or the big load. It starts downloading this big, massive file. And that's why it does it after hours, because it doesn't want to alert anybody for slowing down their network and all that, or slowing down their internet, because people say, why is my internet so slow? What's going on? IT professionals will start looking around saying, hey, what's happening? Well, there's a big download going to this computer. Let's go ahead and stop it. So they're trying to use all of these ways of not alerting themselves to what they're doing. So what they'll do is the big payload comes down. Now it's going to go and start encrypting all the files on your computer, which will encrypt the next one you're connected to, your server drives, your other network drives, and things go crazy. So what Sandstorm or Sandbox does on enterprise firewall, which most of them have it now, is they'll see that payload being downloaded and they'll stop it. And so they'll wonder, there should be no big download going on, and they'll put it into a little sandbox on the side and kind of evaluate it, look at its signatures and say, oh, compare it to their list of signatures, say, this is a bad piece of software, I'm going to prevent it, I'm going to eliminate it, and that's the end of it. And so that's real important to have. And if it is something legit, you're downloading big video files at night, you can whitelist that on the firewall, allowing that URL or that download to come through, and it'll sandbox all the rest of them. So it's really important to do that. You also need to make sure that you have really up-to-date enterprise class endpoint software. Again, the malicious software that comes in, one level of protection is the anti-software, anti-malware, anti-spyware. It's not the only one, it's one of them, along with the Sandstorm or Sandbox, which is another one, along with all the patching, which is another one, and so forth. When you have malicious software, you tend to see problems with your computer. It slows down your memory, you got pop-up windows all over the place. That's usually a case that you have some sort of malware or adware, spyware in there. You want to alert your IT people and make sure that they look at that right away. The best thing you can really do is to unplug it from the network. If you know how to do that, call your IT people. They'll come in, they'll scan it, make sure that it's clean and clear, and allow you to be able to use it again. You got to make sure that you don't install any software that you don't know 1,000% why you're installing it. Again, and that's not going out and wanting to watch a video on the internet and saying you need to download or install this software in order to do that. And you say, well, I really want to see this video, I'm going to install it. Big no-no. Don't do that. There's other things that are inside that software. The video might play afterwards, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of other things that have been downloaded with that. So you have to be diligent and you have to think on what you're doing. And that's all end users, because one end user can infect the entire network. And usually when I'm out talking to companies, we'll have a group of people in the room, and I'll look around and I'll say, it's the responsibility of each person because it affects the entire company. I go, what if it was your computer? What if you clicked on something and you downloaded and installed some virus that went and infected the entire network, that took the whole company down, that their IT company doesn't have a good backup or whatever the case might be, and they would be out of business, which means you need to look around this room and look at all your coworkers and say, because of what I did, I put everybody out of a job. And if you start thinking about it in that manner, you're going to be a lot more diligent on making sure that you don't click on or try to download the wrong software or put the entire company out of business, your job included. You know, it's a big thing. And so until you help them realize the importance of it, so they're not just, you know, glazing over and just sleeping during the training, they have to understand that, you know, what it can really do. Again, you know, if you're going to do and install some software, you know, you have to make sure that you, again, really know what you're doing. You have to make sure that you have some other forms of being able to scan and to try to eliminate or mitigate the issues that happen with the software. One of the helpful removal tools, and most IT people know this, is called Malwarebytes. It's free. You can run it on your computer. It's legit, and it'll go through and see any kind of malware that might be on there, and most likely be able to remove it from that. So something you might want to think about. Passwords. So when you get compromised, you get something that gets brought into the network, the first thing it's going to try to do is try to compromise passwords. And if it can get the administrative password for the network, the domain, they have the entire keys to the kingdom. They have everybody's account information, everybody's access, which they can turn on and off, as well as access to any files or folders within that network, more than likely. So it's real important to protect your username and protect your password, because that is your identity. Don't share them with anybody. Don't say, hey, here's my password, go ahead and use it. That's a big no-no, because you're compromising your identity by doing that. You never use the same password for everything. You don't have the same password for your bank, the same one for your Amazon account, the same one for the log on the computer. You need to have different passwords for everything, which people are, you know, looking at me and saying, that's great. They might shake their head, yeah, we need to do that. But in their mind, they're like, there's no way. I can't remember the 2 passwords that I have, yet alone a whole bunch of other passwords. So there are password managers or software out there to be able to do that. 2 of which is LastPass and 1Password. Both of them are very good. You do have to pay a little money for it, but it can manage all your passwords, meaning that you don't have to remember it. So if I go to my bank account, my bank login on the web, I go to it and I see my little password manager icon on it. I click on it. It knows by the URL that I'm on my bank account, and then I click another button and it puts my username and password in automatically, then logs me in. Now, I have to first, at the beginning of the day, log into my password manager software, which is a unique password to me. All the other passwords I don't have to remember. I only have to remember that. And it works on your phone, it works on your laptop, desktop, home computer, wherever you're at, you can install it. It syncs up the accounts and the information. If you put a new password in on something on your computer, it'll work on your phone, it'll work at home, and so forth. So something I highly recommend, because passwords are so important. And so for all of our clients, we strongly suggest, in fact, we even push them into a password policy. So what is a password policy? A password policy says that it has to be 8 characters or greater. It has to be changed every 90 days. Some of them are 30 days. It has to contain characters, capital letters, numbers, and so forth. And you can't use the same password more than 5 times, things like that. And so what we normally do for us is that we use passphrases for everything. So rather than having a password like the example that you see right here, we would have something like my.dog, all capitalized, .has.fleas, $15. It's a long passphrase, very, very difficult, because you're separating lowercase letters with a symbol. It could be a dot, an @ sign, it could be a dash, it could be whatever you want, with another word that's all capitalized, with a symbol, with another word that's all small, with another word that's another small, and then you have a number or 2 and a symbol. Very, very, very difficult to hack. Now, to remember that, again, without having a password manager, it's very, very difficult. And if you do have a passphrase, something that you can really remember, like the one I just said, you don't want to put that on all your accounts. So it's really, really important, because if they have your username, email address in most cases, they have your password, they're going to go and try to take that password and try to get into all your information, all your accounts. And there may be some variation of that password as well, because sometimes you change it up a little bit, you know, but generally that's what they do. And for them to be able to hack that password is pretty simple. Not that hard at all. And please don't put it on a Post-it note thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to clients' networks and go up to a computer and on a Post-it note on their monitor with their password or underneath their keyboard or whatever else because they just can't remember it. You know, if they can do it, anybody that's in that office can see it, can do it. You can have a client come in and be talking to you at your desk and just kind of look down and glance and memorize that password. Now they have your password. They certainly know your email address, and now they can go potentially use that against you from a identity theft standpoint. We're going to talk just a few minutes about the backup, about business continuity, and then you have to make sure that you have backups. Again, as I said before, we have a 3-layer process for backups. We make full image backups several times a day to a local device, a network access storage device, on-premise. We also replicate that on-premise to a data center off-premise. So if something were to happen to that room, it catches on fire, sprinkler system goes out, shorts everything out, we have the same image, full images of your server or whatever we're backing up off into the cloud as well. And then the third thing is that we also back up all files and folders separately. The reason that we do that is obviously the on-premise image is the quickest to restore. If you get hacked and you get all your software is encrypted or all your files are encrypted, and we want to recover all of that. Our backup is an off-network backup, so it's not going to get encrypted. If actually the backups are already encrypted. So what happens is we'll go and we'll wipe that server out. We'll load this backup software. We'll restore from the local NAS device. And it's a much quicker response to be able to build that, all those virtual machines back up, virtual servers back up and all that. If that were to fail, something were to happen, somebody came in and broke in and stole everything, fire in the computer room and all that, we can also, at our data center, spin up all the servers that you have on your network remotely, the data center, give you access to do that so your people can continue to work until such time as we rebuild that local on-premise network and put a new server in there, and then we'll again do another backup and restore locally, and you're back up and running again. So it's the continuity. How much time does it take? Is it 2 hours, 4 hours, or is it 4 days or 6 weeks? And so we try to mitigate that and minimize that as much as possible. We also make sure that your network drives are always backed up, and that we back up again on-premise and off-premise. I got ahead of myself a little bit here, right? And at home, you have to make sure that you never, ever, ever keep any personal identifiable information or protected identifiable information, or PHI, which is protected health information. You don't keep any of that on your local hard drives. You can keep it on the network drives. You can keep it in a secure cloud folder, but never, ever, ever keep that information on your home computer. Chances are the home computer is not protected very well. There's no good firewall. The antivirus might not be protected. The operating system might not be updated. Somebody's going to get in there, and now they have client or company personal information, and that's a huge no-no, and you don't want to do that. You also want to look at key desktops, computers. It's not just the server and the server files that should be backed up. You're going to want to make sure that you back up specific key computers that might house some additional information, or a person that tends to put everything on their desktop and at some point move it off to the server. You're going to want to make sure you back that up, identify it and back that up as well. Physical security, I'll go through this quickly. You need to make sure that you keep everything protected. We talked about this. If it's laptops, those hard drives should be encrypted. If you're under HIPAA and you happen to have some PHI information, somebody's health information on that computer, and you lose it, leave it in the cab, somebody steals it, you do not have to notify the HIPAA authorities at all, because that data was encrypted and it can't be used. So some of the things to think about. Make sure that, again, that you don't plug in any unknown USB devices into your computer, because they tend to have viruses on them. I remember once, a quick story. I was at a seminar. I believe it was an ASCII seminar, which is a IT seminar. And the person was up there speaking, and then a couple, three really nice dressed, beautiful women had these big baskets, these big wicker baskets, walking around. They had little USB drives in them with a logo, information on it, and they were walking around, passing it around to everybody we were in round tables. So passing it around to everybody in the tables. And we looked at it, and we noticed it was for the next speaker coming up. And so I saw several people in my table pick them up and shove them in their laptops right away and start looking at it, probably thinking they can prepare for the next speaker. So the next speaker gets up and all that, and says, as you know, you were given a USB thumb drive, one of those little thumb drives with our logo on and all that. And if you put it in your computer, we just unleashed a virus on your computer. And let me explain why we did that. Actually, they didn't do that. It was just to scare everybody. He says, you don't accept and plug in a USB drive or thumb drive into your computer, even though you're at an ASCII conference, even though it's a speaker that's going to come up, or you don't know what's on there. We could have put a spyware on there, where now we have a key logger, so we can log every key that you stroke. I didn't put it in. I didn't even touch it, to be honest with you. And so it's real important to use your mind and understand that you just don't do that, even in that kind of a setting. Just like if you walk in a parking lot and you see a thumb drive sitting there, you go in the hallway of your company and you see a thumb drive laying on the floor and pick it up. You're all curious, you're going to plug it in and see what it is. Chances are that was left there by somebody that's going to want to install something on that computer and on your entire network. Never, ever, ever do that. This talks about screen locks for a lot of environments that are regulated, like HIPAA. In the financial industry, you have to have screen locks on, so you can't have your screen being displayed which might have other people's information on it to be displayed to other people that don't belong or don't need to see that information. So you got to make sure that you do that, and you got to make sure that, again, that your passwords are in a password manager, and that your Wi-Fi access is somewhat regulated. If you're going into a Starbucks and you get free Wi-Fi, you're going into Dunkin' Donuts and you get free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi is not free, meaning that once you connect to it, I can sit in a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, and I can sit there and I can go and scan. I can see all the people that are surrounding me on the network, and I can go ahead now and proceed to try to see if I can go ahead and hack into their computers. You don't want to do that. You're exposing your entire computer to that. That's why you want to use the hotspot of your phone or something like that. Or if you're going to do that, you're going to want to make sure that you're using some sort of virtual private network encryption to make sure that the person like me can't hack into it, okay? Talked about the dark web a little bit, and dark web is interesting. So the best way to depict this is through to understand the depth and breadth of it is through an iceberg, right? So the top half of the iceberg that's above the water, that's where we live. We live in the Googles, the Yahoos, the Facebooks, the emails, and all that. That's above the water. But lurking way below the water is a much bigger piece of ice, and that's called the dark web. And that's where all the nefarious people sit. That's where it's an online marketplace to exchange for drugs, cyber weapons, counterfeit. That's where they exchange personal information, sell personal information. It's also for legal traffickers, pedophiles, things like that as well. And so what happens is that your data, if it's breached, goes for sale. It's listed here in the dark web, and then other hackers buy that information so they can go in and try to see if they can find a way to penetrate into your network or steal your identity or buy stuff, using your stolen identity. This is a very real thing, and this is where all the bad stuff happens. So what we do here at Stryker Networks is we make sure that for all of our clients that we do dark web scans constantly. And so anything that pops up for our client on the dark web, username, password, which comes up often, then we jump on it, we go and change it, we notify the end user. It may not be the network password, but it could be a password for their Amazon account or a password for their Facebook account, which they can go in now and ruin your identity. It could be something for your banking information and all that. They don't know, or a variation thereof. So we want to monitor it. We want to react to it. We want to make sure that our clients are kept safe. Again, multiple layers of stuff. You have your firewalls, you have your backups, you have your antivirus, you have your training, you have the dark web scanning and monitoring. And so it's very real. It's a very important thing, and it's something that we need to make sure that we always look at and monitor. If your IT company is not doing that for you, they need to be doing that. It's important. You don't want your data out there, and you'd be surprised how often that data appears on the dark web. So again, in summary, we can't stop everything. We're doing the best that we can with the tools that we have, and we're being as proactive as possible, right? The computer user awareness or the end user awareness is key. We train all the time. This is why I'm doing this webinar, is to help people understand what's out there. Again, you have to recognize that there's an issue, a problem. You have to accept that there's a problem, and then you have to do something to correct the problem, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here. So in that, we've set up, or we've started a division, if you will, of our company called the Cyber Security Intelligence Group. And what that is that it's not just cybersecurity, it's compliancy, compliance testing, it's cyber insurance, it's training, it's all of this. It's all one thing. It all fits under cybersecurity. So if you're not constantly monitoring, constantly updating, constantly training, then you're doing network audits and scans, bringing information up, documenting. You need to document in order to stay compliant. You need to remediate the issues that are out there. You can't remediate them if you're not scanning and looking at them. You need to remediate them, and then you need to, once they're remediated, you don't set and forget. You got to rinse and repeat. You got to go every month and rerun a scan and see what has changed, what is added, what do we need to do. Policies, procedures, training, all of that is all part of cybersecurity. And until you understand that, you're going to be at risk for a really long time. So we here at Stryker Networks, we feel it's that important to the point that we focus on that, as well as our regular managed services. We still maintain networks, and we still have help desk and all the other stuff. We also have another division that does specifically this to help make sure our current clients and any new clients that we get are protected. And we don't have to have and do managed services or provide the managed services for all of our clients. We like to do a co-managed services where we'll do the compliancy testing, the cybersecurity testing, the remediation, or help with the remediation, or give suggestions how to remediate, let the on-site IT staff take care of that, or the on-site managed services provider take care of that. But you need another set of eyes. You need to evaluate, you need to test and all that. And I got to tell you, so what's coming down the road is, and we're starting to see this right now, is a higher level of cybersecurity enforcement. And I don't know if you know much about how the UK handles it, but their level of security from a cybersecurity is way up here compared to us. We have little things. We have PCI, we have HIPAA, we have GLBA, we have SOX, we have some of those other regulations, but they're not together. They're all independent of each other, right? We have the NIST. NIST is the National Institute of Security Technology, I believe. It's a framework of what to look for and what to put in place, and that includes documenting, testing, and all the other stuff, right? So what's happening is we're seeing states bring in their own higher level of cybersecurity requirements, not HIPAA and not all the other ones, but something much higher in align to or in akin with what they have over in the UK. And so that started to happen. New York has one, California has one, there's a couple other states. And then when I found out that in the legislation in the House, there's a bill with bipartisan support that is to put together this high level, very similar to the EU and the UK over there, very high level of cybersecurity requirements that would supersede the HIPAAs, the PCIs, and all that, something that would take all of those and bring it to a much higher level. And that's going to include having to be compliant, having to test, having to train, having to document, and all that. That's coming. It's right around the corner, I'm guessing 6 months. So you need to make sure that you're aware of this, and that's my job to help you understand and be aware of this, that is coming up. And so we're going to have a series of webinars, this being one of them, but the next one's going to be on compliancy. And I hope you can all, join. If you found this valuable, then you can join that as well. And we're going to teach and help you understand why it's important, what we're going to do for a compliancy standpoint. So again, getting back to the dark web, we're going to offer all the attendees here a free dark web scan. To see whether or not your data is out there, your company's data is out there. Now, in order to do that, we have to have a company email address and a company URL. It can't be a Gmail, a Yahoo, sbcglobal.net email address. It has to be a company email, has to be a company URL. That's the only way we can run these scans. And then we'll scan it for you for free. We'll give you the results of the scan just to kind of give you an idea of what that is. And so we're going to offer that to everybody that attends. All you have to do is just send me an email to mgreen@strikernetworks.com and then put it in the title Dark Web Scan, and we'll be happy to run that scan and get that back to you as soon as possible. And I think it'd be nice to see what's out there. It's kind of crazy. So again, it's time for questions and answers. I'll be happy to answer all your questions the best of my ability. My information is sitting out there. If you need to contact me directly, there's my phone number, there's my email address. I'll be happy to talk to you, happy to answer any of your questions, and that's it. And then after the question and answers, we'll see you. I believe our next one is on the 26th of June as our compliancy webinar. We'll send emails out and notify everybody that attended this webinar for the next upcoming one as well. So hope to see you all then. And again, thanks for attending. Appreciate it. Thank you.